into timely advice from experts as we discuss all things leadership and technology. You'll get the inside scoop on better business practices, from making the most of your technology to leading a company with your head and heart. Pull up a seat with Marco CEO Jeff Gow and President Doug Albrechts. Let's Tech.
Welcome back to Let's Tech. Today's episode is all about sales. So we're going to focus today on how sales professionals can effectively navigate the current climate. As a lot of you know, I am a sales guy, so I'm totally interested in today's topic. In fact, we have two sales professionals that work with myself here at Marco that are going to share a little bit of time with us and hopefully talk a little bit how they work their way through this current situation related to this global pandemic. It's not business as usual. In fact, you could say almost unusual. I want to welcome Shelly Caldwell and also Jason Boutwell. Shelly, tell me a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in sales, how long you've been at Marco. I know you've done a good job, and that's why we're here today, right?
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, my sales career started really at a landscape nursery in Sartell, Minnesota. My job was to listen to customers when they brought their dead plant in and said, how do I resurrect this?
Do you remember you designed or gave me ideas for my lake home in Perham? Yeah. Good job on that. Still doing well, by the way.
Okay, good.
Awesome. That's been a while.
It has. You know, I've been at Marco for 14 years, and you know, a lot of my, selling skills started out at that landscape nursery in Sartell because my job was to listen to customers and understand what was going on, but then put together solutions. I really, truly enjoy getting to know people, because everyone's got their unique story. So I love coaching them and helping them be successful and really grow.
Good.
So that's a little
well,
bit
welcome.
Me.
Thanks for joining us today. Jason Boutwell, longtime friend of mine, colleague in the industry, and you've been at Marco now with us for quite some years. You know, I'd consider you to be one of the top sales guys, and so what a career. So tell me a little bit about you and how long you been at Marco and kind of what you do?
Yeah, sounds good. So I've been with Marco. I'm just about ready to celebrate my 12th year, officially employed by Marco. I like to consider myself as being part of the family, though, for about 20, because I called on Marco. I worked for a company called Mitel, a supplier of Marco, is one of our business partners. And as I really enjoyed the role that I had at Mitel, but I traveled too much. With a couple young kids, I needed to transition.
Couple? How many is a couple?
Well, a couple at the time when I joined 12 years ago, and now I've got a girl who just celebrated her 12th birthday. So I've got 4 kids. I sleep in my own bed just about every night of the week, which is a nice benefit of working for a local organization as opposed to a regional or a national like I did before. But my first step into sales, and I think this is true probably of most sales professionals at Marco or anywhere else, is it probably started in junior high. I remember, doing things like a lemonade stand or even, because really, what is selling? Selling's helping. Trying to help people accomplish whatever goal it is that they're trying to accomplish.
Well, and if you sell something a long way, that's good help, too.
It is.
Because it helps you make more money. Is that how that kind of...
It is.
That's, I think, how the equation
works. But I
works,
think
right?
one just comes with the other. If you've got the heart of a helper, the sales thing is just a natural fit for that type of personality. So is everybody a good fit for sales? Maybe not. But I think every person who's got the heart of a helper can be an effective customer advocate / salesperson.
So very good. Well, good having you both here today. Tell me a little bit. I'm going to start with you, Shelly, because you kind of have this dual role. Mm-hmm. You were in sales leadership. You are in sales leadership. You were a salesperson, which means you're just like myself. My title might not indicate it, but I am a sales guy, like I said. So a lot's changed in the last 90 days, right? So how has that changed your job, both from how your employees that work with you work with our customers and how you do that? Tell us a little bit about what's different now.
A lot has changed. Back in March, when we all went into quarantine, as a sales crew, we actually scheduled, we call them coffee and success roundtables, because as a sales crew, we needed to be on at least encouraging each other, because almost overnight, our customers needed to refocus and look at their business and say, okay, how do we do this remotely? So what we did as a sales team is got on the phone and started sharing best practices. How do we become emphatic to the customer and understand what they're going through? To us, it's like, how do we put ourselves in customers' shoes to learn what the organization is going through in order to shift?
Good point. Yeah. It was very different for them, wasn't it?
It is. The first couple of calls that we made, it was you really had to use your ears when you were on the phone speaking with the customer, because you could hear the emotion through the phone line. And it was pretty intense, but you were going through it too because you transitioned remote, and now you aren't, I know this is a podcast, but I'm fortunate to be in the same room as you. So I can see, where over the phone you cannot, and all you do is listen.
Yeah.
So we actually, as a sales coach, my job is to encourage other salespeople. It's really, hey, listen to the tone. If they sound sad, it's okay to say that, and be like, hey, we're going to get through this. So
that's the empathy part of it, right?
Correct.
Because Marco's a lot of people's customer too. Oh, okay. And there's some things that we're very uncertain about as we go through that and have went through that. So I get that. The more that they could associate themselves with how we were trying to make that decision, or maybe we're reluctant to make that decision, or maybe even reluctant to meet, because that's a good term, empathy. So Jason, when it comes to things that have changed for you in the last 90 days or so, and I know that you conduct a lot of business face-to-face, and I've been on presentations with you, lots of them over the years, and they're traditionally sitting across the table from each other and using the tools that we would use in the same room and maybe demonstrating some of the features. What changed the last 90 days, and how are you overcoming something like that?
Well, I'm thankful to be working for a company who was, first of all, very well positioned to make that transition, that overnight transition that Shelly had referenced. I think a lot of our customers really struggle to make that same transition. So we've helped customers engage and utilize video conferencing technology.
We sell them that,
We
right?
do.
Yeah.
So it's ironic that our primary disposition when we're getting together with customers is face-to-face. That's what I like to do. I feel like I can best communicate and listen to my customers when I can see those nonverbals, so I can understand what we're trying
Body
to accomplish.
language is very important, isn't it?
Yeah. So here we are, oftentimes now using the same technologies we've been talking about, video conferencing technologies, WebEx, that face-to-face thing. Although it's not the same over a WebEx, there's still that element. And now we're helping our customers utilize those technologies to do the same with their customers, so they can listen better with the visuals that come along with it. So it's been, there's been some positives to it as well. Rather than spending time bebopping around or driving around to customer sites.
Bebopping, I like that. That's a good term.
Yep.
Well,
Instead,
by the way,
I'm sitting and I'm more productive.
Jason's in Fargo, North Dakota, right? Which is, I think there was a movie about that. But Jason's in Fargo. So when you're bebopping, it could be for an extended period of time sometime when you're out moving around your territory. But things are a little different in Fargo. You're starting to see some face-to-face meetings now. I mean,
we are.
How's that kind of working? Are
Boy,
people a little reluctant, or what's it feel like?
Yeah,
now?
There's policies that some customers just aren't able to get together yet. There's other customers who are back to business as normal. And I tell you, I didn't realize how much I enjoyed the face-to-face until I wasn't able to have a face-to-face for a good stretch of time. Had some customers in maybe 3 weeks ago, and I'm telling you, it was emotional to have customers back in front of me.
Well, you're an emotional guy.
I am.
Right?
I cry all the time.
That's true. He actually does.
Yep.
So you've started to see a little bit of activity getting back together.
We have, yep.
And it's a little reserved, it sounds like.
There's no hugs. But and the number of hours in a week where we're face-to-face is still drastically limited or reduced compared to the good old days. But yeah, it does feel as though we're still effectively serving our customers, and we are getting back to normal.
So, Shelly, a little bit about that too. So, I know you and I have done presentations together, quite a number of them over the years, and now that face-to-face part, has been, diminished at best, right? And we're in Minnesota, and we're in an area where you're really in an area which is pretty medically centric. You're down in Rochester, right? And
My home is in Rochester.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how that's kind of working in your world without being able to meet face to face.
Yeah, we're still 100%, over WebEx. Now, WebEx is our video collaboration tool. That's our choice. We're also using Microsoft Teams for internal communication. So as we were just talking about, it's the nonverbals and being able to, you always have to be on there. You're hearing this new phrase called video fatigue. It's a real thing.
That is a real thing.
9 hours being on video calls, pretty intense. Mm-hmm. And, even if it's a 30-minute thing, you're watching for every slight movement within the customer to understand exactly what's going on or if there's something happening. So, still all 100%, completely via WebEx, but we're really fortunate. I actually went to the office for the first time on Thursday of this last week. It was so great. you almost want to reach and like hug your coworkers. So it's so good to see them. Besides,
Yeah, well, it's great to see you come in today to our corporate office here in St. Cloud. It's when you talk about the WebEx fatigue. What was the word you used?
video fatigue.
Video fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever notice, like, when you're on video, I do it myself because it's hard for me to pay attention for extended periods of time sometime, and I know I'm singing to the choir here.
Yeah.
But when you got their video on there and it's live, and then all of a sudden you see it just go to their fixed picture, which means they're not on video anymore. And so even as customers, when they do that, like they're thinking, I wonder if they're paying attention right now. Do you get that new feel of, I'll call it video language or body language? Or
Yeah,
whatever
a little bit of that. You usually ask a question, hey, everyone with us? Just to see how everyone's doing. Also, hey, do we need a 5-minute break? Because we've also done that too, where we're doing a demonstration actually on WebEx. We're like, hey, 5-minute bathroom break, literally to go grab a coffee or just take a breather too. It's all right to let people walk around.
That's a good idea. Good term on that. Do we need to take a break? Yeah. I could see that. How about you when it comes to like some of this, this new way of the video concept? Have you been able to navigate that pretty well? Any best practices you can think of when you're thinking about video that you go, that's something that I didn't realize would happen?
I think that because of video, there's some accountability built into it. I get more out of a video call than I do out of a non-video call.
Meaning audio only?
Audio only.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Yep.
Sorry if I said that wrong. So as you and I are sitting here face to face, if I had my computer off to the side and I was making zero eye contact and was totally multitasking, that would be 100% inappropriate.
Very distracting.
It's tempting to do when you're on a phone call, right? And you see it all the time on phone calls where a question is asked and someone will say, can you repeat that question?
Code word for I'm not listening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They hit mute.
They hit mute. And you can't do that on video call. So I do get more out of a video call than I did or do out of a telephone call. So I like the accountability piece of it. And it forces me, like you, Jeff, to pay attention as opposed to multitasking.
Jeff, to add to that, so right when we went into quarantine, we actually scheduled a call. We're like, hey, we need to talk about video etiquette. Like,
good point.
What do you need to ask your customer to be prepared with? And we want to see their faces because we're going through this challenging time and we need to know, what's actually going on. Are they at home? Do they have kids around them? Because that's also a thing. They go on mute sometimes because they got a dog or a child that walked into the room. So, but video etiquette was something that we sat down with the team and say, hey, as you prepare for the video or the call or the meeting, make sure you ask them to be prepared to share video. And if not, that's okay. Maybe we need to reschedule. That's okay too.
That's a good point. Video etiquette, that's something, that's a new term kind of, right? And so when you think about the meetings that we have internally, which is a good time to practice and observe too, right? Are people wearing hats? Do they look appropriate? Those are terms that I know we've been doing it so long now, the last 90 or so days, we've kind of gotten used to the coaching that comes with it. Let me ask you a question. We're in the technology business here at Marco. Have you seen a lot of interest in these products and solutions related to video? I mean, I'll start with you, Jason. Yes. I mean, tell me more about that.
Yeah, major uptick in remote video. Now, if we contrast that back to boardroom-based video, it's kind of a tale of two technologies, even though they're
tell
really
us about
the
that.
same.
This is interesting. I've heard this. Yeah, tell me.
So I've had customers say, hey, I don't have anybody in the office. Let's do some construction projects. Let's tear out the old stuff, put in new stuff. And I've had other customers say, we're not sure if we're going to get back to the office like we used to. We may very well end up with an extended period of remote employment to the point where we're going to invest instead in remote video technologies as opposed to spending our video dollars in the boardroom. So there has been an absolute focus on how to communicate, but really different responses from different customers and different industries and segments as to how they are addressing the need for video.
How about you, Shelly? Have you seen an uptick? We've
heard customers say, hey, let's hit pause because we need to figure out where we're going. What are things going to look like? We had a pretty large audiovisual opportunity with a client, and they told us, hey, let's hit pause. But they asked for ideas like, hey, where do you think we're going to land? And how, what do you think the plan is? Because they have budget. It's being shifted to maybe using a video collaboration product that has recording, but then also like some sort of coaching in the background. And you can actually poll people to know if they're paying attention or even track if, Jeff, you touched your mouse or not. That's another thing that these tools have integrated into them. So just more of a pause and, hey, let's get creative about, okay, if we need to be remote one day, what does that look like? If we need to be all on site, what and how could that work?
Sure. Tell me, you have a lot of your salespeople that work for you work remote, well, like all of them right now, right? And they were used to a lot of them coming in the office. I know that because I work in an office complex here in our headquarters, and I see a lot of salespeople coming in, or I did. How do you kind of keep scoring what's going on there? I mean, how does that work? We're counting on people to work remotely. Is that changed at all? How you look at managing salespeople, their productivity? I mean, what do you see in there?
What we really focus on is their activity. So, we use products like Salesforce. We document tasks. We make sure that they have as many appointments as possible, right? We have a goal or a quota of appointments because we want our reps, really reaching out to existing customers, but then also prospects too. There's so many clients that, they look at their business and they don't know how to get remote. They don't know what this cloud stuff means. And they don't understand, okay, should I be using Zoom, WebEx, Teams, or what's the latest, greatest thing that's coming out?
A lot of options there.
Oh man, ton of options. And what's the price? Because half of it is trying to figure out, is it $5 a user? Is it, $200 a year? What's the benefit to my business? So that's a lot of the questions that we're getting right now.
I won't ask you what's best, but we'll hold that. So Jason, here's what I kind of felt is that early on when we went into this work from home policy that so many of us had, all of us had, and we kind of had this early on, rah, we got it here for a month, we got this, we can do it. Then after a month, it's like, well, we kind of have this, and then by the third month, it seems like it gets to be a little fatiguing for the person that's working from home. They start to, maybe settle into a bit of a complacency, maybe even, or like, when is this going to get over? Feeling it gets fatiguing is a term I've heard. And as salespeople, we're kind of emotional that way. And we have, have you felt that, or what do you do to combat that? You said you're glad to see, again, you're in Fargo, so it's a little different. Things are a little more opened up there, but tell me a little bit about that feeling part.
Sure. Well, I think as humans, first of all, salespeople are humans, right? I think we can admit that much. And we all have emotions like any other human being. And sitting in a home office and working without interaction can be difficult for any human, whether it's a salesperson or someone else. As salespeople, we feel rewarded physiologically when we help our customers, help them spend their budgets wisely, help them effectively implement new technologies to succeed as an organization.
Absolutely.
So I get a lot of juice from that. Celebrating those successes is as important as it's ever been, because you just don't have that camaraderie in the office like maybe you used to. And getting into a kind of a groove of complacency can be a very dangerous thing. Dangerous meaning, if you don't manage your time well, a week can go by like that. And I snapped, for those of you that can't see on the video, like that. Because, an hour not managed well becomes an afternoon not managed well, becomes a day, a week, a month. And boy, if you're not managing your time, you're not managing yourself. And boy, that can catch up with you.
Yeah, that's what I kind of sensed. I had to do a little rah speech, for lack of a better term, to the sales group recently to kind of acknowledge that, hey, let's this COVID effect, let's kind of regenerate ourselves a little bit and try to stimulate more activity, new activity, call another customer, call somebody you haven't talked to for a while, but to start to drive some change. Because I remember previous times when we were challenged with driving business, it wasn't business as usual, so it was much more difficult. So tell me, Shelly, are there any new tools or strategies that you've used?
Yes. So we tried a lot of different things. But to step back a little bit, putting salespeople in a room and not having social interaction is very difficult on their personality. At the end of April, we were starting to see that, activity was declining because people were getting burnt out from being in their homes. And what I mean by people, the reps, the sales team. So we're like, okay, we need to have more breaks, move around a little bit, like go for a walk. And in end of April, it was still chilly, still cold in Minnesota. So go do something, 5 minutes, because they're just going to be that much more productive. So we did encourage that. We wanted them to be active so that they would continue to make phone calls. We also put kind of more of a comment out there, when in doubt, call your customer. Because, you make 50 phone calls, you get 50 no's. It's very difficult, to keep to keep the momentum going. But we always said, hey, when in doubt, make sure you check in on your customers to make sure everything's good. So what have we tried? I applaud our sales crew because they have gotten so creative. As part of those roundtables, they were on the phone with a customer, and the customer was actually building a house during this. And the sales rep was listening because words matter. And the building process was very difficult. And he ordered a welcome mat for the client and delivered it to them.
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
Something creative like that.
Yeah.
You have to really listen and understand what is going on. I think I've said listen like 3 or 4 times now, but it truly is that way. Because you want to put yourself in their shoes, because you want them to be able to take their initiatives forward in order to drive whatever technology that they need to do. And whether it's security, like they don't know, hey, they have an open port in the firewall because overnight they moved remote and they didn't look back, and they're working remote and they haven't actually done a security check to make sure everything was closed down.
Create a different problem.
You got it.
Or an opportunity for selling technology,
Well,
right?
All day long, right? Those are things we love to fix. And I think that was more of a creative one that we tried recently. Another thing that we tried is when we had discovery calls with clients, like they actually took a meeting to learn about WebEx, we found out where they were. And even if that was 7 home addresses, and we sent Jimmy Johns out to all of them and said, thank you for listening and participating. And if anything, to encourage them to continue to meet with us.
Yeah, I've heard some creative things that way, because our travel and entertainment budget is certainly been, we've been doing a good job on containing that. I kind of looking forward to when we see more of that activity again, but that's a clever way to do it. Kind of, you can still have lunch together, just going to do it apart.
A little differently.
Oh, that's pretty cool. How about you, Jace? Anything that, from a sales perspective, that you've done that worked particularly well, and maybe some of those where you go, yeah, they don't work so hot. Any of that kind of stuff come to mind?
Well, I'll tell you, whiteboarding sessions have become difficult.
I bet they have.
Oftentimes when you're working on designs that require all sorts of lines and squiggles on a whiteboard, that's really hard to do remote. And I haven't really found a good way to emulate that in a remote first type environment yet. I think it's probably makes sense for us to recognize the different stages of a sales career too. And I didn't mention this during our introduction, but I went from sales producer to player coach. I was managing a team, and now I'm back into regular production. But I feel like a rookie again to a certain degree, because I'm making prospect calls. And I say rookie, but really we're always doing that. It's a little more difficult to make prospect calls when you're just another telemarketer. When you're local to your customers, there's something special about that. People want to do business with local organizations. And we're local in all of our markets, but somebody calling from, Nashville, Tennessee is the same remote voice as me sitting 7 blocks from my quarantined customer. So that's gotten a little bit difficult to differentiate when you're making those prospect calls. But Shelly, to your point, doing some things that are creative, delivering items. We've done some of that kind of stuff. We've done some virtual happy hours where we can see each other face to face, so that they do recognize that you're local and you're there to serve.
Sure.
And when push comes to shove, you can make that 7-block drive and deliver a product in a pinch that your competitors can't.
Sure. What's interesting too is it kind of starts out with best efforts, creative things. We've got this. And then at some point in sales, in order to be successful, you have to actually sell something. So it has to kind of convert from, well, that was really a good effort. That was a good idea. We actually have to convert those to sales in order to, fulfill the role that we play and to help our company achieve their goals. So I know you've been doing a lot of that, but I also know it's been so challenging. So let me ask you this, Jason. Has this situation made you a better sales rep? And first of all, you were pretty darn good and one of the best. But has it made you better? And if it did, why? And conversely, of course, if you're not as good as you were here 3 months ago, you don't have to tell us about this. But has it
the numbers don't lie, right?
The numbers don't lie. So, and there is some degradation. It's hard, right? But tell me, has this made you better in any way?
It has. And I'll tell you one area in particular that's made me better is I'm more prepared for my sales meetings now, because oftentimes they're back to back to back.
Good point. Sure.
So when I had referred to bebopping around a little bit before, I had time to think, I had time to breathe, and I had time to mentally prepare prepare for the next meeting, because oftentimes they were separated by a couple of hours. Well, now they're separated by a couple of minutes. So I start my day in a much more disciplined fashion than I ever used to, or the night prior, to prepare for that day, to make sure that I'm ready for each of those meetings when they are scheduled back to back to back. So it has made me a better salesperson, and that's one area in particular that it has.
Prep work, that's a good one. Okay, Shelly, how about you?
Being militant with your time. Jason, you used that word once, and I take that forward because your customer's time, your time is so important now. So having patience is also like slowing down, actually understanding what's going on around you is something that I know I could have been better at, and I have been better at. But also, and I know we've discussed this, but polishing virtual selling skills, like the soft skills of selling via video, is something that I would have probably given myself a C- on before, and I would say I'm upper towards like an A- now. So
You're a tough grader.
Yeah,
I bet
there
you
go.
got an
Yeah.
A. Well, good to hear.
Good question.
Well, because this whole idea of being productive and getting the results from it, that's part of the equation that has to work. And so it's beyond best efforts, and you need to convert it into productive output. So now we've spent some time here talking about what's been different, and along the way you probably got some good advice that either you received and would pass on, or some advice you might have for others. But tell me, is there any one thing or two that you might say, I learned this through this process, and for other salespeople or our own salespeople, if they're out there listening, what advice might you give them, or what would you share?
Over Father's Day, I was lucky to actually spend time with my dad. I actually got to be within 6 feet of him, but he has a successful excavation company in the small town that I grew up on, and he goes, "Shell, how's it been going?" And I'm like, "Well, it's been going." And he goes, "Okay, you're sugarcoating, like I can tell." But he looked at me so intently, because it's also impacting his business. But he looked at me and just said, "Shelly, we will get through this, just like we've gotten through other things." And it actually made me tear up. But I just appreciated that. I needed that specifically from my dad. So, yeah.
Well, good. So that's good advice you received. And you know what? It's starting to, I'm seeing it because I track the numbers, obviously, and I'm starting to see a really nice uptick in business, and we're starting to see those results.
Yeah,
so
gotta get it done.
we are getting through that.
Mine feels kind of shallow after hearing Shelly talk about her relationship with her dad. But one of the things that I've always held near to my heart is value your time, and know and understand to avoid working with customers who don't also value your time. Asking those sales questions like, are you seeing value from this meeting? Because there's customers, candidly, that'll get together, just to escape their day-to-day routine. Spend your time wisely with those organizations and those customers who also value your time. And that is something that I've always held near to my heart, and I've shared with my team members back when I used to lead the team as well, is that time management is really what it all comes down to, whether we were talking about before or now.
Being productive. Well, I'll tell you what, I sure valued your time today. So thanks, Shelly.
This is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for joining me today. Hopefully the strong sales aptitude that you have and some of the things you shared with us will be an asset to our listeners out there. So if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe or follow us to get the latest updates. And if you want to, you can leave us a review if it's a good one. If it's not, just keep that to yourself, okay? But to all you listeners out there, thanks. We sure do appreciate it.